Bell, these guys gotta wear to pretend they're Pride Month.
Listen to her. We are live. Good afternoon, and you are rolling on the road with Dr. Kimberly and Dave. Dave is on a mini assignment, and he will be joining us sometime during the broadcast. But I am excited. Today is segment two of talking about the intersectionality of disability and the church. What a great response during the show, after the show, I have been catching all the comments, trying to respond to everybody, and it was just overwhelming. I think this is a subject that really has not been touched on, um, just in general. And we certainly haven't had an opportunity in the last, almost 30 months that we have been rolling to really delve into it. And so there are so many lenses by which we can really talk about this. So if you, like many of you did, and I've been grabbing you so that I can get you locked in for a date and a time to come on the show, that again, please, whatever your lens is and your relationship as it relates to the intersectionality of the church and your diverse ability, please, 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 please. Heidi, did we not just reach out to you? It was like, what did you say? You watched the replay, and I caught the comments that you put on there when you were watching the replay and said, hey, you want to come on and talk about this. And so I love what you posted, and it was about the church that you, if you are still attending or had attended at one point, uh, how they segregated the Bible study. So today our guest is Heidi Devries, and anybody who knows her, she is definitely a fierce advocate in the disability community. She and I have done many legislative days together, showed up for legislative coffees, and anything else that has been in the community where we could talk to our legislators concerning the quality of life for persons with diverse abilities. And so uh, I love, I love how you talked about how you were separated. So first of all, do you want to disclose what your diverse ability is?
Um, well, born with cleft lip and palate, and diagnosed with at age 15 months with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay.
So when I was, little, the arthritis didn't really show up that much. And unless I started talking, you really didn't know I had a speech problem from the cleft lip and palate. And so I just keep plugging along day to day, bugging who I can, and you know, following you to go bug some people too.
And you let me Dr. Cam, this needs to be taken care of. And I'm like, okay, Heidi, what do we need to do? Tell me where we need to show up. And I'm definitely there. So
Yeah, and you make a comment, I'm going, you got it right, Doc. Tell them.
and I definitely, appreciate it. And what I tell people, if you're looking to be a systemic advocate, that you can't just advocate for whatever your disability is, but it's nice to be able to, advocate on behalf of all, because
Yep.
somewhere in there with whatever your diverse ability is, it'll fall within, the spectrum, so that if I say, hey, we need to make sure that we have automated doors no matter where you go, everybody can benefit from that, because I believe that when you make a decision based off the most excluded, that you truly have included everybody. And it's definitely um, nice when you can advocate holistically. But you really brought up a great point when you were talking about the segregation. Did they make the assumption about your disability or what they thought because you are in a scooter?
Yes. Yeah. Um, I'm kind of going to backtrack a little bit here. There's a
Okay.
comment I forgot to leave with you before. Um, I've seen the discrimination in the churches since I was little. I mean, little. Used to go to neighborhood church when I was a kid.
Hmm.
I did not grow up in Grand Rapids. I grew up in the Lakeshore area.
Okay.
Um, Ottawa County. I'll leave it at that. Um, my mom would take us kids to church, a lot. Okay. Um, I mean, we weren't there, every time the door was open. That was my dad's thing. His parents did that. Um, but we always went on Sunday, and my mom would put me in the kids' Sunday school Bible thing, right?
Hmm.
Well, one day, she gets word from one of the Sunday school director that they don't want me in the class anymore because I missed too much because of surgery.
Oh.
Yeah. I was a disruption every time I came back because I'd be gone for 3 months and then come back. And then the kids would do, oh, Heidi, you're back, everything. They wouldn't pay attention, so they didn't want me back in there. Which my mom, that she blew a cork and said, fine. You don't want my kids, you don't get my family either. I'm not going to sit here and leave my kid home by herself while I go to church. You
And I think
know?
that's a perspective that I guess I hadn't thought about. If children or even really adults, if you require, multiple surgeries or other type procedures based off of whatever your um, disability is, and it causes you to miss, periods of time, whether it's going to church or going to Bible study, and then you come back. I mean, I think that it's wonderful that everyone is happy that you're back. And
Yeah.
I mean, and do we take the time and up there's is that Dave? Up and there's
Oh,
Dave joining us. Hello.
hi, Dave.
Hello, I just wicked glare on
Yeah.
me. Here we go. What's Heidi? Hey, Heidi.
Hi,
What's up, Dr.
Dave.
Kimberly?
You're home.
No, I'm downtown.
He's at
I'll
his
let
other
that.
side.
We'll let that one go, Dave. Hey,
Hey, Ronnie.
Thank you,
Ronnie.
Ronnie, for tuning in today. Everybody says, "Hey, Ronnie." Now, see that, and Heidi was just talking about that. That as a child, she had multiple surgeries, and so she would be gone maybe 3 months at a time, from church and Sunday school, and they asked her mom not to bring her back because it was too much of a disruption because the kids were all excited that Heidi came back. But just like we stopped, took a moment to say, hey, welcome to Ronnie, I would think that as a church, we would be excited to welcome someone back that has had, multiple surgeries and now they're able to come back into the flock. So,
Yeah. And the thing of it is now as an adult, I have friends that have, grade school age kids, and they're church hopping to find a church that will accept their kids because they're still, 40 years later getting the same comments, which I think is pathetic. You would think after 40 years a church would grow in that, especially, after 72 when the kids are integrated into the schools and then Bush and the ADA. You would think the churches would kind of quote unquote grow up or grow into the concept that they're going to have disabled people. I mean, they're all into welcoming the elderly, but how much of those elderly are there because they got money?
Well, it is funny you say that because it's um, as any nonprofit organization, it's any organization, you got to have people who help pay the bills. Either people pay the bills because they come and buy what you're selling, or if you're a faith community, people have to come and contribute when the hat gets passed.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, um, it is that. I mean, I had a conversation with an entity once that talked about visitors with disabilities, and they truly were committed to make sure visitors were included. And then when I changed the parameters to donors with disabilities, because again, as an organization, a big chunk of their operation is based on donors, they went from commitment to really committed. And
I was gonna
so,
say, I'm
yeah,
gonna
and
say how much they're jumping for joy.
yeah, and it's unfortunate that people have to do that, as opposed to, again, if you read the, at least as Christian folk, you read Christian scripture, and it's like, we're supposed to welcome everybody, especially, the widows, the orphans, and the strangers.
So
So
where do people with disabilities fall into that?
I think people with disabilities, because of course, 2000 years ago, people with disabilities, that's a whole nother episode, or part of this episode, where again, disability, you know, they're not even on that list. And
Of
so,
course not.
and are people with disabilities just, again, the legal beggars even 2000 years ago? And how many people would have died with just the simplest of medical condition, because there just was no medicine? I mean, even 100 years ago, let alone 2000 years ago, that idea of, how are people, what are they surviving with into adulthood? And at the same time, even, this was not even 20 years ago, the United States Supreme Court, when it took up the case on assisted suicide,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
one of the justices said that, and this was I think in a dissenting opinion, that said it, again, in tribal times, okay, if it was just, here's the scenario, it's me, Stanley, Heidi, and you, Dr. Kimberly, and all of a sudden a group of 6 people come over the couple of hills away, and we're like, uh-oh, we got to get away. And it's like, sorry, Kimberly, Heidi can make it, so me and Stanley, we're going to help Heidi, and we have to leave you behind. And the United States Supreme Court said that was honorable. Now, it might have been honorable 1,000 years ago when we had some tribal, or even 2,000 years ago when it was just a very different world. But in 2022, we can't carry our brothers and sisters, both figuratively and literally. And we don't want to carry you into church, but to build the ramp so you can get yourself into church. Again, it's just a wacky world. And plenty of churches have complained to us not complained, they've whined about the cost. I mean, it's a lot of money to build, especially if you built something that was really cool to have not everything on the same floor. It's wacky.
Yeah, I think that we talked about that last week, where the trend was to have these big, wide pulpits that had these cascading stairs, and that means we were excluding people.
Yeah.
That's exclusionary. Because I think one of the comments that Heidi made was that the two of you know a pastor, and because she has a disability, has not preached. And I'm not sure, is it because of the physicality of getting into the pulpit, the way that it's designed, or what's the reason?
From stuff this person has told me, it's combination of being a woman and a woman with a disability. Because churches that she has been wanting to attend are, I always get this confused, so you'll have to help me out with this, Dave. Which one is the one that's a little bit more um, conservative, RC or CRC?
Probably the CRC would be a little more conservative.
And that's the ones that she's having to fight with to let her, you know, because they all know she does, but it's like she's the token elephant in the room, you know. They're not offering her anything. I mean, not even a segregated Bible study, which, little tokenism and ableism here, but, you know, so she's taking her services and volunteering a lot of mornings to do services at um, Hope Network
Mm.
and leading, mini church services there when they start their day because, you know, the only place you can do it and not get hassled.
Well, we're glad that she does have some sort of um, way to be able to bless the people with what it is that she can do. It is 16 minutes after the hour. We want to say thank you so much for tuning into Rolling on the Road with Dr. Kimberly and Dave. And today we are doing segment number 2, the intersectionality of the church and disabilities. Our guest today is Heidi Devries, and she saw the show on the replay. So we want to say thank you so much, Heidi, for watching the replay. And she left a comment when I went back to go and check the show. But first, I want to say thank you so much for all of the comments that came in during the show and afterwards when I went back and I looked at all of the comments. I even got inboxes, and our whole month is already booked because so many people said, "Hey, they want to share their story." So we are booked the rest of the month with a different lens for each show, and we could do this for a long time because there are so many different lenses by which we can talk about the intersectionality of disability and the church. And Heidi talked about, as she watched the replay, her experience with being in a segregated Bible study. She said that she only has the one physical disability where you can see that she's in her scooter and that you don't know that she what a cleft palate
Yes,
until she starts to talk. So, how do they decide which Bible study? And this has been since you've been an adult.
yes,
Can you talk a little
yes,
bit about how they made the decision? How many people ended up in that Bible study? And then who gets to teach? How come the lady that has a disability that's a licensed minister can't come and teach the Bible study?
yeah. Well, this was under the church's auspice of uh, women's ministry, right? Who's typing?
I,
Keep your computer. Thanks, Dave. Um, you know, the churches, they'll have like the guys group, they can all, dad's day out away from the kids, Bible studies, young couples, old couples, whatever, right?
Right.
Well, they have one ministry for the women and it's large group, and it was like one Friday a month, right? Talk about a specific topic, have some snacks, whole 9 yards. Christmas and Thanksgiving kind of have a little holiday meal, discuss, Christ's birthday and all that happy stuff, right? Well, when I first started in that group, um, I was kind of on again, off again with my crutches, depending on where the arthritis was acting up that day. If I was hurting, then the crutches came along. If I wasn't, still walking without them. So gradually it was on the crutches full time. And then 4 years ago, when I got the Amigo, And that was probably the last year they were doing it live versus Zoom because of COVID, right? So, I started getting funny looks because I drive in and, you know, some people stopped talking to me, which I don't deal well with that. I think Dave knows I don't, you know, you don't talk to me, I talk to you. Don't care. Um, so they're putting together the Christmas part of the thing. And I'm like, kitchen wasn't big enough. So, hey, can I help? How about I put the tablecloths and the decorations on the table? I can do that. And they're like, looking at me. And the lady goes, are you sure? I'm like, duh. I do this at home all the time. Why not? Oh, okay. So she gives me this, the plastic bag, grocery bag full of stuff you get when you go to the dollar store and buy stuff. So I go over there, start getting the tablecloths out of the bag and realized she had bought square tablecloths and it was going to look goofy on round tables. So I said, went back to her and said, did you realize, I can make this work, but, I don't want you coming back later and saying I didn't do it right. She was pissed, but, hey. So she's like, no, just go ahead, do what you can do, you know. So I'm like, okay, got all the tables set, came back to her with the bag and said, what do you want me to do with the rest of these? So you can remember to take them home. Um, well, before I figured that out, go through the receipts and circle all the packages you did, the line items on the receipt so I can take them back and get my money back. And she's like, oh, no, wait a minute. I don't have time to teach you how to read a receipt. I'll do it when I get home. And she kind of grabs the bag away from me like she was going to catch something.
So what you're saying is that just not so much with Bible study, but being able to participate within church activities as a regular person, if you will, and not being treated or placated uh, because it seems like, oh, well, you have an obvious disability. I'm listening to the way that you talk. So that means that you're probably not capable of assisting in anything that we're doing here.
Right. Because I'm physically falling apart mentally, I don't have it either. You know? And I gotta tell you, Doc, you and I, in the wheels, we figure it out how to do it. Probably do it better than somebody walking. You know, and it's like I'm sitting here thinking to myself, if this chick only knew, you know, I got like almost. I think I'm even like one more class for 2 associate degrees in sales and marketing and business management, but
Mhm.
the microeconomics killed me. You
Yeah,
know,
the average person, absolutely.
yeah, math just at the time was not my thing. And I have a minor in sociology and one class away from a bachelor's in psychology with 2 other minors in special ed and early childhood special ed. So it's like, she must really think I was stupid if she only knew.
Well, I think that it goes back to, and Dave, we talk about this all the time. Oh my God, you're so, like, that how inspirational you showed up. Oh, this is great. You want to help. I think that's good. You know, not allowing people to, put you in the box.
Yeah,
Well, if I could throw in there, hopefully my old phone, which is causing the crinkling on my end, doesn't come too poorly on your end. But anyways, that idea of, there's so many layers to the discrimination, the ableism, where first and foremost, Heidi, is what you were just describing, and Dr. Kimberly giving an amen to it, if I can say that. That, oh, they see the wheelchair, they note you have a disability, and all of these assumptions are you're not able. And this piece of even folks with cognitive impairments, and this sounds, it's like, can fully participate in a Bible study or religious ed. I mean, what does that mean? That full participation, but first and foremost, those massive assumptions, and then how do you deal with that next layer of like, okay, let's say we're going to have these Bible studies, small groups, but they're going to be groups of 8 to 10, 30 people sign up, and we only have one accessible space. So 2 of the groups are going upstairs, and one is going like where the accessible room is. And it's like, well, I always have to be with these same people because, like, let's say 8 people need the accessible room, and it's like, well, I want to get to know other people too. It's not that I don't like hanging out with just these 8 folks, but I have no other options. So
Yeah,
Well, it says, so we want to say thank you to Ronnie for tuning in. Jessica, hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Deborah, I love you. She's all the way in California, and I agree. It says, just had a conversation about this a few nights ago about the term of when is it okay and when is it not okay to use the term inspirational, motivational, and brave. I was actually having this conversation last night because many of the leadership classes teach you to lead with empathy. And if you're telling something about something that happened, there's like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I said, don't say that to me. And they're like, why? Did I offend you? Absolutely, you did. And not that you did intentionally. And I said, but that is how everyone leads out their conversation when they get ready to speak to me. I wheel up or they come up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, you're so pretty to be in a wheelchair. I'm so sorry that you're in that wheelchair. And I say, well, I'm not. I'm sorry that you're walking around. Walking is just so antiquated these days. Why walk when you can just zip, 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 zip? And, it kind of takes the sting away from it. But I just think that it's placating. When someone comes up and says, oh my gosh, wow, I'm just so sorry. Wow, you're so inspirational. This is so motivational. Oh my God, you're so brave to show up today. And you just look and you say, I get up just like you do. Maybe it might take me a little bit longer, but what precludes me has nothing to do with me being in this chair.
see, I don't get it when people say, "Oh, you're so brave." I mean, I really don't understand it because being born with a disability, well, diagnosed at 15 months, I don't remember not having a disability. So, you know, um, I do not understand people who are tabs. I mean, I truly don't get it because, you know, you can just walk through life, whereas those of us, I think, with disabilities have to be very creative. I mean, I have lately, because I uh, had a little health scare back in February, and the OT and PT people come in the house, to work with the exercises and stuff. And they're like, you know, okay, since I'm in your home, show me how you would do this or show me how you would do that, right? And they're expecting me to do something one way or hand them a jar and let's say you open it and I, get up, go root through my silverware drawer, find, bottle opener and pop the seals on jars of pickles and everything, pizza sauce, and go, okay, so here, I did it. What are you gonna do? Give me a pat on the head, go good doobie, good doobie.
Well,
No.
absolutely, and that's what happens. And they say, "Well, can you do this?" I said, "Honey, I don't do that anymore. There's just certain things that I just don't do. Oh, somebody else does that for me, So no,
Yeah,
ma'am, I don't do that."
yeah,
And she's like, "What?" And I'm just like, "Yeah."
yeah.
But I think that
Or
I like what you said about the helping. And Dave, I agree. If they're like, "Oh, we like you because you're disabled and you can write a check," I have to tell people,
yep.
I'm not here to be your piggy bank. I want to participate in ministry. There are things that I can do. I talk about the show, and hey, I can get up. I can lead a Bible study. I do have a couple of degrees, maybe not a lot. I just got, just a couple of them, and I do speaking engagements all the time. And like, well, okay, well, we just don't know because we're not used to having handy capable people in our church. And so, we're trying to figure it out and we'll kind of help you. One of the things I would always come in my manual wheelchair and I would say, okay, if you're gonna talk, you need to sit down and look at me, face to face. And I said,
Yep.
standing over me and holding on to the back of my wheelchair is not how you have a conversation with me. So I think that was the biggest thing with being, in church when everyone wants to talk and I'm in my manual wheelchair. It's like, okay, let's sit down, sit next to me and have a conversation. Or, let's take a knee. Let's see, what did she say? What did
Oh,
she
I
say?
hate the term handy capable. Ah!
Now that term I think probably bothers me more than anything. I've never been
Yep.
offended by how people want to express, oh, being disabled, but to call me handy capable, yeah, I don't think I like that one at all.
Oh, Weasel and I got into it one time because he used the word trip, which at the time I had never heard that before.
Say that again.
Um, Weasel, him and I were talking and he used the word crip. CRIP.
Yes, from Crip Camp.
And at the time, I had never heard that before. So I was totally insulted. And then a few minutes later, I happened to, yeah, so and so had this idea that I thought was totally retarded. And needless to say, he was all over my case. So we kind of had to come to an agreement about thou shalt not use certain words in my presence.
Absolutely. We're gonna take a break here. It is now 33 minutes. I'm trying to be cute and I put my glasses down again. Yep, it's 33. It's 33 minutes after the hour. We want to say thank you so much for tuning in to Rolling on the Road with Dr. Kimberly and Dave. So I think that we've kind of migrated a bit from our topic talking about a segregated Bible study to just terms that are used and, just the treatment if you are a person with a disability and, how you're just treated within the congregation. And Heidi speaking about growing up in the church as a person with a disability. Um, Cassandra Wolf will be on next week to really speak more to that. I'm really excited because she is definitely a deep woman of faith. I love
Yes.
her writings. If you get a chance, I'm not sure if her profile is public and how she wants people to come and approach her, but she definitely has great musings on her relationship with God and as it relates to her disability, how she has navigated since a little girl. She's been on a couple of times, and alluded to some pieces, but on next week we will definitely get to do the deep dive about what her faith has looked like, and having been born with cerebral palsy and some other layered disabilities that come along with her cerebral palsy. But she is truly, now I can say she has inspired me to continue to go on when I get frustrated, because I can read something that she's read when I feel hurt, sad, disrespected, or just, reeling from the ignorance of people and their ableist comments. I can go to her page and find something that really truly soothes my soul,
Yep.
and it is a balm from my wounds. And so I greatly appreciate her, and I can't wait for her to come on and have the conversation about this on next week. But I do appreciate where we have gone today, Heidi, and talking about languaging. And thank you so much, Deborah, for chiming in on that, because I think it's important how we talk to each other. And just as the able body say, you got to teach people how to treat you, you have to do the same thing as the person who's diversely able. You just have to educate. I love teachable moments. However, I do have, oh my goodness, I'm working on it. Just my tolerance has waned for ignorance, because at some point, we just have to take responsibility for our words, and we just need to learn how to be kind, because we always talk about at any given time, you could become disabled, whether it is temporary, permanently, whether you're born with it, or you acquire it, or it's situational. To me, all of it, you need to be kind.
Well, in kind and I mean, the word that comes to mind, it might not be the right word, is like authentic. That, I'm just,
Yes.
we've talked about it on this show. It's like, you know, how are you, Dr. Kimberly? I'm fine. How are you, Dave? Fine. How are you? Fine. And we're just kind of go through these meaningless whatevers, as opposed to, the fun I have at the grocery store is, when the cashier, and most days, I shop at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and the cashier's like, how are you? And I say, I'm tired. And they just stop,
Mhm.
and they're like, wow. And I'm like, how are you? And they're like, I'm tired too. And I go, but yeah, at least I get to go home. How long do you have to work? I got to make it till 11. And that little bit of authentic human communications, and
Yes.
as opposed to, do people say, oh, you're so brave or you're so inspiring? Is that just to get rid of you? Or is it their uncomfortability because they don't know how to, like, you just say, how are you? And Heidi's going to tell you, be careful what you ask Heidi, because she's going to tell you the truth.
That's true.
Uh-huh. You may not want
Exactly.
to know.
Right. And if people want authentic relationship communication, that's what, because it's like, oh, you're so inspiring, where when you say that, Dr. Kimberly, that you can use that with Cassandra, because I know, and we've seen it on this show, I've seen it not on the show, that the two of you have an authentic relationship. And when you say you're inspired, it's not just a warm feeling. You are inspired to action. And you know that the two of you are going to be fierce advocates for justice. And so you say, you inspire me. You give me energy to keep going, because being a fierce advocate can be really tiring, folks.
Oh
And
yeah.
how many times do you have to re-educate the same people all the time? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
anyways, I'm going to go back to mute myself to say, and how does our faith life not call us to authentic relationship, as opposed to judging people, what your ability is, who's going to heaven or hell? I'm going to mute myself so you don't hear me thinking.
I don't think that's not a good place to mute yourself. I think it is a time for you to really vocalize that piece right there, because that was just really profound. To say, at what point do we start to be authentic and not just passing along misinformation or perpetuating prejudices or assumptions? Just at what point do we stop and say, I think I want to think for myself today. Oh no, did he went away? But maybe
He'll
he'll
be back.
say, where did Dave? They're not home. He left. But I want to say thank you, Heidi, because I think we're almost, yeah,
Yeah.
we're like two or
And I
three
want
things.
to say thank you to you too, because, I've been doing this advocacy thing for probably 15, 20 years now. And I was starting to get burned out. And then you and I met at GR Inc. one time to, you know, do some accessibility stuff. Hi, babe. Glad you're back. And I'm just watching you, learning your style and, all this stuff. And there was somebody that was doing some presentations and stuff, slideshow up on the wall. And you just went after him with all these questions about, hey, did you ever, when you're doing this, stop and think about this and the other thing? And the way you're saying this, it ain't gonna happen. You're in a dream world, son. And I'm in my head going, yay, 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 yay. Tell him. I've been saying this for years. I finally got an ally. Come here, woman. It was great because it's like finally somebody besides me saying this, and my partner in crime, who you both know, not looking at me and going, shut up, because you and I, come at it from a lot of the same angles in terms of telling certain folks where it's
Mm.
at. So now it's like I'm not alone in this anymore.
Oh, absolutely not. And thank you so much, Deb. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you. Um, I think that I'm extremely passionate because, and
Me
I didn't
too.
know at what point to tell this story. We only have a couple of minutes. I don't know what Dave's schedule is or yours. I want to be respectful. But last week, I'm going to try to do this without crying. Last week, I went to Frederick Meyer Garden, and I was in the cafe having lunch, minding my own little business. And they have a server there. His name is Ben. And I am going to post it because he asked me to make it public. And he obviously had some cognitive impairment and maybe some neuro going on. And he works for hospitality for Frederick Meyer Garden. And he came up to me and he said, I like you. And I said, I like you too. He said, I like the way you dress. I like your purple. And he goes, I like your purple wheelchair. I said, thank you, Mr. Ben. I said, I appreciate it. And then he came to me and he said, you know what? I said, I don't. I said, but if you tell me, I'll know. He said, my father would beat me. He said, when I was a kid, one, because he was different. And two, he said, because all he wanted to do was blow bubbles. I said, blow bubbles? He said, yeah. He said, but I'm an adult now. I can blow bubbles. And he can't hit me anymore because um, he has dementia. And I said, oh, wow. And he said, but I want everybody to know that I know that he was messed up. He said, can you tell everybody that? I said, you know what? I'll let you tell it. I said, yourself. He said, I can. And he said, yes. And so I pulled out my phone, and I said, I have a show. And I said, so I'm going to do the intro to my show. And I said, this is Dr. Kimberly, and I'm rolling on the road. I said, I'm here, at Frederick Meyer Garden, and I'm talking to Mr. Ben, and he's with hospitality. And I said, he has something that he would like to say. And he was like, he was messed up. And now I got to say it out loud where he could hear me say it. He says, now can I do the picture now? And I said, you sure can. And I said, you know what? I said, he was talking about his dad. And he said, yup, he was messed up. And I got to say this out loud, and basically it was like his dad couldn't do anything about it now. He could be vocal. And so that is why I don't get tired.
Yep.
I don't, because there's always been somewhere who needs to have a voice. So I got up the next day, and I have 8 grandchildren because I have a new one on the way. So I have 7 and one on the way, making that number 8 for me. So I always have all kinds of, wonderful things because I'm a nana, and I had some bubbles, and the sun was just coming up, and it was beautiful. I started blowing bubbles, and I said, I'm blowing bubbles for Ben today,
Aw.
blowing bubbles for Ben. And it's moments like that that make me keep going. The fact that
Yep.
he came up, he saw that something for him, that I was a safe person to be able to tell his story, and then asked me to tell the story for him. And could he, do, put it on video. I can say this out loud because I'm in a safe place to be able to do that. And I can't wait to go back. And when I go back, I'm going to have a big thing of bubbles that I am going to give to Ben so that he can sit and blow bubbles and know that nobody can hurt him now. Yeah.
That is cool.
So
That right.
authentic communications and connections, and just with a little bit of bubble.
That's it. I don't know if you can hear what Dave just said, but he was talking about the authentic connections. And as we close out today, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in. And like I said, the month is already booked, already putting people into October to be able to tell their story. But today, this moment right now is for all the Bens of the world who have been mistreated by their family, by a church family, because they were different, because they had a disability, or because someone didn't understand them. Just know that when you come on here on Rolling on the Road, this is a safe place. Um, it's a safe place to talk, have the conversation, and know that we are in 50 states and we are now in 12 countries. I thought we have a new one, belief, that we're in, and you are in a community that believes in the work that we're doing, and they are safe people as well, and they are authentic. And if they're not authentic when they first start watching the show, by the time they get through at least 2 of them,
Yeah.
by the time they get at least 2 underneath their belt, I think that they will be thinking and acting differently. I have to believe it. I have definitely gotten many testimonials over these last, 30 months, and excited to continue to move forward so that all the Bens in the world know that they have a safe place to be able to express themselves and be able to blow bubbles. So I think maybe next week we'll start the show with blowing bubbles. Say, well, why you guys do bubbles? Because there's somebody in the world who can't blow a bubble, and we're going to blow a bubble for them.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Heidi, for coming.
Anytime for
I
you,
appreciate
kiddo.
you. And Dave,
Hey, Next week, I'm going to be at the home office, so I'll have good Wi-Fi.
Yay.
Until then, I'm muting myself.
All righty. Guys, we thank you so much for tuning in. And, keep on rocking and rolling. And guess what? COVID is real. So please continue to get your vaccinations. Because even if, they do have medication and people aren't dying, who wants the inconvenience of being sick? I'm not trying to mess up my eyelashes or nothing like that, or my lip gloss. Okay? A little vanity there. But you guys, be well. Until next week.